kind of just in a bad place in my life at that point in time. Once I found out that I was pregnant, I didn't really know what I was going to do. Um, Living in my mom's basement, just in a really bad spot in my life. And I already had lost custody of my two kids previous. So I just felt kind of like if I was to go through with the pregnancy and keep the child, that my daughters would think that I forgot about them and moved on. So a couple people had mentioned adoption, so I started calling around, and the very first place that I called was Adoption Choices. Actually, it was the first one that I pulled up on my phone online. I had talked to Amy first off, I believe, and she was really nice, really helpful. I called her from Topeka, Kansas, actually, is where I was living at that time, and she was just had answered all my questions and sounded really sincere, and was really helpful. And she drove all the way to Topeka to meet me, and we talked a while, and kind of told her my story and what was going on at that time. And she actually took me and got me a phone so we could stay in contact, and got me groceries that way I'd be able to eat, and kind of just told me how it would work. And I had major trust issues before for my life in previous situations, and I actually connected with her. She was really nice and really helpful. I kind of trusted her from that point on. So we had made it to where I was going to move to Wichita to get out of the environment that I was in, to get into a better lifestyle. That way I'd be better off with the child while I was pregnant, and just to get away and to restart my life. So really they helped me open up a whole new chapter, as far as getting clean and just starting over. They got me into an apartment there, and they paid for the rent and the utilities and bought food and helped me get back and forth to my appointments, and stuff. They loaded the whole thing up, really. I started from nothing, and they helped me get everything together. I did go with an open adoption, which is kind of hard in the beginning, but really I wanted to be able to see his growth with the family, and I wanted to be able to get pictures. And they actually are letting me see him once a year, so I get pictures pretty much like every month. I get to see him once a year, and it's really amazing being able to see him interact with the family. I couldn't have picked better people for him to be with. In her story, she had put in that she had tried previous to have a child, and she could not for a long time. And they tried to do an adoption, which did not go through. And she sounded like she'd have a really hard time, and she just wanted to be a mom. And they'd had a farm out where they live, which I really like. I feel like it's good for the kids to not be in the city, to be able to have that life. And just their story, really, in their eyes, their face, they just were really genuine people and seemed like a perfect match. I think the hardest part for me, honestly, was right after I had my son. I'd prepared myself through the whole thing, basically trying not to get too attached and everything. Holding him the first time and then knowing that I was going to have to let him go, honestly, was probably the hardest part for me. It took me a minute to think about it, and I had to think about, if I kept my son, how hard it would be in the lifestyle that he would have if I was to keep him, compared to what the lifestyle he would have if I gave him up. But I'm glad I went through with it. His lifestyle that he has now is way better. He's got an amazing family, and he's truly happy. To be able to see him interact with his family, and when I get to see him, is just amazing. He's so happy. There's times where I do stop and I look back, like, okay, it took me a long time to get sober, and to get to the point to where I'm at now. After I had him, I've been able to stay clean because I moved to Wichita from Topeka, and I got my kids back eventually. And I do wish that sometimes I would have him in my life, but to know that he is doing so well and he's so happy and has all these things that he'll be able to accomplish and have in his life that I would not be able to provide for him. And to know that she has a child in her life now to where she didn't have before, to see how happy she is really what does it. No regrets. I'm glad I went through with it. It is kind of sad, but I don't regret it at all. I would just suggest taking your time, make sure that's what you want to do. Go in and talk to either Kate or Amy, and just sit down with them and realize what amazing people they are and how hard they try to make sure that you're getting the right match for your baby and your family, to make sure that you're comfortable with it. That way you don't have any regrets in the end, and you know that you did the right thing, and it kind of just feels right in your heart. You know, if you go with what you think and how these people are and how they are with you and how you interact, I don't think you'll have any regrets. They truly are amazing. I know my biggest fear kind of was that your child will grow up and think that you gave them up because you didn't care or because you didn't want them. That's not the fact at all. I mean, it was the hardest choice that I ever made in my life, honestly, and that we do love them and we do care for them extremely. And because of that love is why we chose to put our kid up, to make sure that they had all the things in the world that we couldn't give them.
She is the poster child for how you can turn your life around. And that's not a joke. I mean, when I think about the first day that I met her and I picked her up, you know, from where she was staying, and we went to IHOP and got breakfast. I remember sitting across the table talking with her while we were eating, and then we went and got groceries, like she said, and a phone and stuff. And when I think about the person she was when I picked her up that day, and not saying you were a bad person, Amber, because you've never been a bad person. It just was
right.
The situation
for sure.
The situation you were in at the time, versus where she's at now. It truly is like, every time I think about Amber, my heart fills up with pride. I guess that's the best way to describe it, because of the person that she's become and everything that she's accomplished. And she has her girls back in her life now, and they live with her. Everything changed. She's remarkable in what she's been able to accomplish, truly.
And Amy told me to go pick up Amber at the apartment that she was staying in. I went and picked her up, and I think we went to the doctors maybe after that. And at that time, I was also pregnant. So Amber and I had our boys a week apart from one another, which was like heartbreaking for me, because I knew that I was going to go home. And that I was going to get to watch Bowman be born. And although the couple was super great, he was going to go home with them. So I felt really guilty after the boys were born, because Amber has been a part of mine and Amy's life. I mean, all together, from the moment that we met her. So she was already, you know, coming to the house. We would have lunch together. Everything that she did, like, she let me be a part of. So after I had Porter, like, I really missed her and I wanted to hang out with her, but I felt really guilty about bringing Porter with me to see her. But I remember one of the coolest things is that I remembered at Old Chicago. It was right after the boys were born, and I met her for lunch, and I had Porter, and she was so loving on him that it made some of my guilt even stronger. But then I realized that we were just going to have to figure out a way to get through it. And we did. I think I'm a birth mom myself, so I was able to kind of relate to that feeling a bit. But since then, Amber and her two girls have been some of the most important people. Watched Amber get a job, move up to like floor manager at Nifty Nut House, to a job now that she has that she's doing really, really well at. She has a place of her own. She just bought a new car. She's able to take her entire family on a trip to, I think, like, her ability to change everything about her life is probably one of the coolest things about Amber.
Just help even one girl get through the challenges that she's facing in life right now with my story. It would be amazing.